Welcome to the Picture This podcast. I'm your host Cam, and in this show we'll be talking about the creative world of photography and videography and the secrets to running a wildly successful photography business. Let's get it. All right, welcome back. Thank you guys for joining us on this podcast. Today we'll be talking about the fact that I'm a Sony shooter now and what happens to all my Nikon gear. Let's talk about it. So I've literally been a Nikon shooter my entire life. Since the day one when I got into photography, the only camera I've used was a Nikon camera. Actually, it's a lie. I had a Fuji camera that I used when I first started, but beyond that Fuji camera, everything else was a Nikon. I love Nikon cameras. I would go as far as, there's the whole debate about Nikon and Canon, and now Sony, but I've definitely always loved a good Nikon camera. The colors were always proper. They made sense to me. They weren't overly saturated. On a Canon camera, it's just the colors are too crushed and too vibrant. I like the fact that shooting on a Nikon camera, I could now make the colors look like they are on a Canon camera. Right. So that is one thing that I loved about shooting with my Nikons. It's been over like 16 years plus now shooting Nikon and now I'm shooting Sony. It's just weird. I remember an old friend of mine was like, you should get into Sony because, the cameras are this and the cameras are that. And I was like, I swore to be a Nikon shooter. Because it just made sense to me. Like everything was so perfect. Plus Sony made the chip anyways, or the sensor. I liked Nikon cameras and I still do. I think they're amazing cameras. And so, also I had two cameras. So I had my D810 and my D750. Those were like the main cameras I ever shot with because they gave me exactly what I need. They're both full frame cameras. One was sturdy and rugged, and one just was more not a toy, but it was like what can I say about it? One was sturdy, rugged, which is the D810. I think that had like a magnesium body. It was like a really strong build. They're both waterproof, or water and dust resistant. Let's just say. I wouldn't dunk them underwater, but I really enjoyed using both those cameras. They literally took me from, where I started doing photography till now. And I almost wouldn't give up those cameras for the world. But that being said, this episode literally is about the fact that, I'm with Sony now, right? I got the Sony system going. So, also, those two cameras were, one thing I really loved about those cameras is the simple fact that like they shot similar, like the image quality that came from them were actually pretty similar. And I know that sometimes when you get like a newer camera, they change certain things on the camera. And they did change one of the ports. So I would use like my tethering and I couldn't tether anymore the way that I used to from before. I had to tether a different way with a different cord. So that kind of made it a bit annoying. But nevertheless, I did love using those cameras. So you're probably thinking, okay, well, Cam, you had your Nikon cameras and, I literally shot with multiple cameras like a lot because I was a hybrid shooter. Still, I'm a hybrid shooter actually. But, it's one of those things. It's always good to have multiple cameras. And I think what people don't realize is your cameras are your investment as a photographer. When you buy your one body, you can't use it for everything. You need to use one, you don't have to. It's up to you what you want to do. But I think it would be ideal if you have one body that you use it for your, let's say, your key bookings or events you do. So let's say you do event photography, you have your event photography body, and then you may have a body separately used for doing photo shoots. Thing about it is you're gonna take pictures. Your shutter count's gonna go up, and eventually your camera's gonna stop working. I literally had a camera that I used. It was my what was it, my D7000, and that camera is a beast of a camera. If you actually decide to get into photography and you get a camera, that should be the camera you get, realistically speaking. That is like the king-ish of cameras back in the day. Now not so much, but definitely back in the day, that was the camera that would get me like all the content I've ever needed for all of my clients. And it was a beast. It literally was a beast. But I just used it for everything, and that was a problem. It died far too soon, right? And so now using multiple cameras, with my Nikon D810 and my D750, I can now divide how I use the cameras so that it can last me a lot longer. So let's now talk about Sony. Why am I shooting more with Sony now than ever before? Why has this switch happened? Well, I think part of the reason why this switch happened is because I've been doing a lot more video as of recent, and so because of that, I'm actually using my Sony cameras 95% more than I am my other cameras. Now, I haven't completely cut off using my Nikon cameras. I still use them, but specifically for photography, and I use my Sony cameras specifically for videography. I love what Sony has done with their cameras. The autofocus, everyone knows the autofocus is on point. Like it just makes sense. Nikon, the cameras that I have, the D810 and the D750, they haven't caught up, not even close. I haven't checked out the that Z camera that came out for Nikon. I really haven't checked it out. I know a few people that have them, but I haven't checked them out. I think I'm going to stick with the current Nikons that I have right now. Maybe one day I'll probably level up and get one of those other cameras. Maybe one day I'll level up and get a mirrorless camera, but for now, I love the mirror cameras. Yeah, they have a bit more weight to them, 100%, but the other ones just don't feel like they've got that oomph. They're going to deliver, I can guarantee, but anyways. So back to the Sony cameras. I'm literally shooting a lot more video now, and I love it. I definitely do love it. The one thing I would say about shooting photos with the Sony camera, I remember I used it for a wedding one time, and I shot some photos, and the client was like, "Oh, they're grainy," and I'm like, "They're not grainy," and they weren't grainy. They were just really high resolution files that when you load them on the computer, they look grainy at first, but once you readjust the window, they're perfect. They're smooth and they made sense. And so it was just weird. I keep saying they made sense. It's weird. Anyways, I think it was just weird that she didn't grasp the concept of the image. Today's sponsor is Six Figure Photo Biz. So I've created an online course that gives you a decade of all of my skills so you can learn how to run your business and take your photography to the next level. For more information, click the link below or the link in the bio. Let's get it. It's my job to make sure my clients know, hey, these are high resolution files, and there might be some weird stuff that happens depending on the computer you put them on, right? So I think once I figured it out, I explained it to her after, and it was all fine. But that was definitely a thing that that I found kind of strange about using a Sony camera. I didn't understand that. It was just weird. But definitely love my Sony cameras for videography purposes and whatnot. Like they just deliver through and through. They deliver. So I'm never going to stop using my Nikon cameras. You get it from this point forward. I'm not going to stop using my Nikon cameras, but I'm definitely going to be using more Sony in the future. And I actually want to get another A7 III. So that's something I'm actually looking to do. So I definitely love the A7 III. It gives me exactly what I want. Plus, it's actually set up perfectly. Everyone that has seen that camera and asked me like, yo, bro, why is it set up this good? check out Bilal. I'll link him. He's the man. I know that I think someone else set up his camera, but he said he helped me with my camera setup when I first got into Sony. And yeah, I'll clarify it with like some written text here, but definitely go follow Bilal. He helped me out when I first got the camera because once again, I went from a Nikon shooter to a Sony shooter literally overnight, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. Watched some videos, but he gave me the best settings ever. And then also I connected with some other videographers and I saw their settings and I added like 1-2 of their settings to mine. So now it's like I have the perfect machine. It just works. So let's just do a quick wrap up. So number one, I still love my Nikon shooters and my Nikon cameras. I'm never ever going to stop using Nikon, but forever I will be using my Sony because they do give me the versatility to do the job that I need to do with the autofocus and just the picture profiles, everything about them. The fact that they're lightweight, especially when I'm shooting video, I love that. So that's definitely something that you can't take away from Sony. In conclusion, get yourself a Sony camera. I don't care what camera you get, but get yourself a Sony camera. This is being shot on a Sony camera right now. See, I'm not worried about nothing. It's always going to be in focus. But guys, thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for popping into Picture This, the podcast, and I'll see you on the flip side. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. If this is on Instagram, definitely follow because we will be putting out more content like this and into more detail. Hopefully we'll be doing some interviews shortly with some different people in the community, such as photographers, videographers. I definitely want to give a shout out to the photographers and videographers that are listening and watching. You guys are amazing, and have yourself an amazing year. Let's get it.